The life of a bounty hunter in Star Citizen isn't always black and white. It's more of a sticky, mottled grey with random streaks of deep space crimson throughout. Sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands and decide if you're just going to roll over and take it when some overgrown space bully wrongs you, or are you going to fight back and make their insurance claim a glorious flaming nightmare.
Oh, hi Mark.
Because in this world, being a hunter isn't just about being on the right side of the law, which, let's face it, is about as useful as an airlock on a dinghy. It's about delicious, meticulously executed revenge.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
So this colossal, overcompensating Idris had just vaporised my perfectly good cutlass. He must have thought there'd have been no consequences for it, probably while sipping a lukewarm space latte. He wasn't going to bother landing at the orbital platform, oh no. And in my experience, this is precisely what these capital ships do. They destroy everything beautiful and then just move on without a single solitary care in the entire wretched verse. But I wasn't going to let that slide. And if he was going to hang around like a drunk uncle at a wedding, then I really had no other choice but to make him see the error of his ways. With extreme prejudice.
You see, buddy, it's a real shame, because you destroyed my ship, and I'm going to destroy yours.
The pilot seemed to be having some trouble, probably due to a panic attack, or perhaps just the atrocious desync, and he actually fell out of the seat 3 times before he finally went down. Then, the utter scoundrel tried backspacing and setting off the self-destruct sequence, before finally giving up the ghost and accepting his fleeting fate. I should have known at this point that he was going to respawn and come back for a second helping. And naturally, I had one half of a pathetic Arclight mag left. Standard procedure for me, right? I'd sent the Idris into quantum travel just to make the self-destruct extra inconvenient for him, and kicked off the glorious final countdown. Yes, I know I should bring more ammo. I should also eat more vegetables, but I certainly wasn't expecting to have to turn a casual Sunday looting into a one-man hostile capital ship infiltration and demolition mission. I was just supposed to be having fun looting the OLPs on my day off. Anyway, he'd taken me down, but he didn't finish me off, and it seemed like the pilot was absolutely nowhere to be found on the bridge. He certainly wasn't in the pilot's seat. The self-destruct was still going strong though, and eventually the whole ridiculous thing went up in a cosmic blaze of glory. I spawned back in Grim Hex, grabbed a crypto key, and burned my way to Korea. So yeah, you absolutely have to lead a double life as a bounty hunter, doing things that are, let's say, legally questionable in the eyes of the law, because otherwise people will just casually walk all over you, and it's not as if there's any real justice in the UEE anyway. It's mostly just paperwork and bad coffee.
You'll never catch me, Cobus.
I was back at Selin, and this Polaris had just found out the hard way about the aggressively on-point station defences. The crew had already bailed out and were heading for the station, probably for emotional support and warm towels. So I crept in on the Razor, because subtlety is my middle name, and made my way into the facility. Law and order in Stanton is a hilarious concept, and even though everybody here, including myself, was technically a criminal for trespassing, I still picked up a delightful CS2 for my trouble. The universe has a sense of irony, I'll give it that. I wasn't done yet though. Cleared my crime stat and I was back to being an innocent man again. But there was another target heading towards a security post, so I jumped out into space to go and meet him. I managed to loop back around behind him like some hungry predator on the hunt. Whenever I can, I always actually try to make an arrest, which granted is just the sharp end of my blade currently, but still I can dream that one day our benevolent space god Chris Roberts lets me carry an actual, non-lethal pair of handcuffs and a taser. A man can hope. So I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a heads up. You've been able to access criminals' hangars in Grim Hex and probably Pyro while you're a bounty hunter for a long while now, but it seems that anyone can just get into your hangar now without even being instantly repositioned. Now, this wouldn't normally be an issue, as there isn't much point if they aren't a target, but recently, players have been using this, along with the incredibly rude ability to steal your primary weapon off you. This happened to me recently when these two fine gentlemen followed me into my hangar, like a pair of stray puppies. I didn't know what they were up to at first, as killing me here would just only send me back to the clinic on the station, which is practically a spa day, right? They tried to shoot me, unsuccessfully, because apparently they skipped target practice. But then they used the parallax rifle to make quick work of my ship. Like, I don't even really know how this is possible, that they could just, like, destroy my ship like this within literally 5 seconds of shooting some electricity at it. But anyway, I was running out of options, but I hit the eject button. It just seems to me as well that these guys just didn't really have any game sense, because this guy here stripped off my size 2 attrition laser and was going to put it in the freight elevator for some reason. I'd taken one of the guys down, but the other managed to get me. Now, at this point, what they do is, they revive you, and then knock you out again with a melee takedown, which makes you drop your gun. Then, they steal it, and either finish the job or just leave you alone, naked and embarrassed to contemplate your poor life choices. Like, I don't really have too much of a problem with this, as getting into hangars has been going on forever, and I do my fair share of it myself, hunting other players, but it was just a little bit, what should we call it, scummy? I don't really want to be a hypocrite and say that this shouldn't happen or anything like that. All I'm kind of saying is just watch yourself out there, always make sure that you know who's coming in an elevator with you. Anyway, I'd made it back to the lobby, and these guys were still here, and they kept trying to just do the same thing to people. They even tried to sell my own gun back to me, which it was only like a C-54, so I'm not really that bothered. That's what I mean about them not having game sense. But then, they started utterly shit-talking, which isn't really very YouTube-friendly unless you like me bleeping the whole thing out. I don't really want to name them either, as I'm not really into drama, just interstellar violence, but it's just something to be aware of. And I mean, this happens a lot more than you would think it does. I caught these two geniuses doing the same thing when the guy in the Dust Devil armor tried to jump me in my elevator. I'd just come back up from the hangar, and the way that this works is that a player can access your hangar through the elevator that you've just taken, like a very slow vertical home invasion. So I'd just taken the elevator from my own hangar, and then that guy there jumps in the elevator and has now gone down to my hangar. So I was ready for it basically, and I've gone and jumped back in the elevator myself, knowing full well that he's going to be in there. But he didn't hide or anything, he just laid there on the floor and let me shoot him basically, so GG I guess. Oh, it's unlucky that, innit mate? It's unlucky mate! Like, I have no problem with the hustle, but come on guys, you really do need to be a bit smarter than this. Where's your friend gone, buddy? Where's your friend? Oh, you've gone a bit quiet now, have you? Okay. You two have a nice chat on Discord. I'll see you in a bit. Now that I'd killed his friend, he just seemed to hang around on his own. I suspect the guy went to prison, and he was just waiting for him to come back, because he kept following me around. So I changed clothes like several times, just to mess with him, basically. I changed outfits and watched him just to see if they were going to continue their comedy of errors, but he just sat in Grim Hex until he got AFK kicked. And like I said, not that I have a particular problem with hangar camping, but I think knocking someone out to steal a primary weapon is just a bit of a scumbag move, and these two are just a classic example of being scumbags. So yeah, stay safe and just watch yourself out there in the elevators.
Breakdown.
Anyway, like I say, I'm not too salty about all this, as I do a fair amount of bounty hunting in hangars, which is the Star Citizen equivalent of hunting deer in a supermarket. Like, if this wasn't intended behaviour, then why do the developers allow this, but not for everyone? It makes absolutely no sense to me unless this glorious chaos is in fact completely intended. Anyway, I'd followed this guy around Microtech for a while until he made his way down, at which point I decided to conduct a surprise hangar inspection. He had a friend with him, because villains always travel in pairs, and I waited for the perfect opportunity. Once they tried getting into the hull, the ship, not the city, I made my move, which involved an immediate and dramatic escalation of violence.
Sorry, friend, but your partner here was a criminal, so he had to die. Sorry about that. You're gonna have to go back to the lobby now. There we go. See? It's alright, you're safe. Don't worry. We can't hurt you anymore.
Just to illustrate my point from earlier about the elevators, these criminals were running back to the main concourse of Grim, no doubt to bribe the advocacy into giving them their freedom, which is exactly how justice works here. But, like I say, you can just get into the hangar if you take the same elevator back down. It's the space crime equivalent of following someone through a revolving door. So, I laid in wait inside the Rock Paladin, blending in with the general atmosphere of doom. Now, my intention here was to hide out and wait and see where they were going and what brand of mischief they were up to, but they started fighting as soon as they left the hangars, which honestly was a bit rude. So, I waited until they were safely out of the Armistice zone, and then I made my move. Like I say, bounty hunting is about leading a double life, so I dispatched these two without a second thought.
Well, what's all this then?
Now, you might think that this is uncalled for or unwarranted, but let's be real about this situation. All that happens to these two guys after I do this is that they respawn back at Grim and can get their ship back instantly anyway, so it's really no harm, no foul, and then all I have to do from this point on is blow the ship up, which it was gonna happen anyway because it's getting attacked, so what difference does it make whether I do it or whether someone else does it? It's not the point that I didn't have time to break out and save my own skin, and the ship explodes in a fiery doom. That's just how things go sometimes, right? You know, all I'm really interested in this game is causing as much havoc as humanly possible. So another problem in my eyes, not just for bounty hunting but for the game in general, are Armistice zones. Not so much that they exist, but that it's completely inconsistent and frankly hilarious what happens inside one. Take this for example. These guys were literally ramming me with their ships, which ends up killing me because they can't fire their weapons on the ships inside a safe zone. So the only way that they can kill me is death by vehicular hugging. Like, fair enough, I came back with the Talon and absolutely wrecked him with a vengeful barrage of missiles, but my point still stands. Ships don't take damage in safe zones, so why do I? Another case in point, I was hunting this C2, which I'd managed to soft death, a truly satisfying feeling. Great, I thought, I'll just get out and finish the job with an on-foot arrest. But no, because I'm still inside Grim's Armistice zone, I can't use FPS weapons, even though I can use my ships. So I had no choice but to get back into the Hornet and finish it the noisy and excessively dramatic way. Personally, I think they should just remove safe zones altogether and have some form of NPC security that actually works, instead of just nothing happening. What all this leads to, too often, is players just breaking the rules in order to get their targets, or to just generally do something they shouldn't. Like this Polaris owner, who decided he'd had enough of waiting around in the safe zone for the target to stop being cowardly, and so he just took matters into his own hands.
It's all fun and games, I suppose, and everything's fair in love and war, but, I mean, pad ramming is, like, against the terms of service, isn't it? So, you know, doing something like this is just, like, completely against the rules. Hey! Hey! You can't park there, mate!
So the Polaris continues to ram the Constellation until he rams it completely out of the safe zone with this intergalactic golf swing,
takes it completely over the hill, and then, not satisfied with that, he shoots it with a cannon as well. And then it just falls down behind the hill here, explodes, and then I don't get the bounty.
So, if you've seen my videos before, you'll know I enjoy trying to break into capital ships like a sophisticated little cat burglar. I managed to get close to this Idris, but he must have heard the explosion and booked it just before I could get to the airlock.
Like, it's quite difficult to infiltrate big ships like this because, you have to make a load of noise getting there. Either they hear the engines of the Razor, or they hear it explode when I inevitably bail out of it.
Anticipating his next move, I respawned in Grim and waited just outside of the hangar doors, like a very patient, very heavily armed greeter. Like I say, the rules about this type of thing are extremely vague. Like, is it intended for me to be able to break into someone's hangar like this from EVA? If I try and fly in here on a ship with the target, I'll just get repositioned instantly, which is very annoying. But if I wrangle my way near the ship in EVA, I can easily sneak my way into the hangar, using the ship to land on top of to break my fall. Like, is this really intended behaviour from the developers, that I can just float over here and then drop in with the ship when it drops into the safe zone hangar, and then that doesn't reposition me, but it would reposition the ship? Like, I just don't understand what the deal is here, and what the rules are around this. Landing on top of the Idris, I made my way down to the ground.
I skulked around for a while at the back here next to where you get the elevators, because I expected the guy to come down the ramp and I could get him, but there's an exit at the other side as well. Like, to me, this guy going back to Grim Hex and storing his ship, he was done for the day, and he was going home, so, I did the only thing that made sense. You've been nicked by the long arm of the law, son.
So what leads me to believe that this is intended behaviour from the developers is the fact that once I've taken the target down, the game just instantly repositions me outside of the hangar into deep space anyway. Which is like, well, alright then. And that's exactly what it did here, but then it decided that it was going to load everything in and transported me back into the bar at Grim Hex.
Oh great, I can just grab myself a beer then.
The next guy was taken on the Polaris mission with another Idris. I got close and attempted a break-in. Now, I really should have noticed before I got out of my ship that this Idris was very, very close to being destroyed, and unbeknownst to me, the pilot was actually bailing out into the Idris opposite.
And obviously the smart play, if I'd have noticed this, would have been to fly over to the Idris down there, because it's got its hangar open and I could have got in there. But no, I floated over to this one and broke through the doors.
I didn't get the memo though, and as I was making my way to the bridge, the whole thing went up like an expensive firework.
I wasn't having much luck this week actually blowing the ships up myself.
Next, I found myself in the safe zone again, and this time a Polaris had come into land.
And again, people will say, like, oh, it shouldn't be that easy to break into capital ships, it should be more difficult for, single players to have such an effect on, like, a big ship like this. But if you're gonna leave your cargo ramp open, then what do you expect to happen? I assumed they were loading up on ground vehicles, or making a pickup or something, so I wandered my way over and walked right up into their cargo bay. I immediately ran into the engine room, which smells exactly how you'd expect, and I waited for them to get back to the bridge and leave. But, of course, right in the middle of all of that, they just logged out, and I failed the contract. Which is like fine, I guess, you're free to quit the game whenever you want, but there should be some kind of penalty for logging out like this is a criminal, or at least you should get some compensation as a bounty hunter.
There was, of course, only one thing for me to do after that. I stole the ship with the full intention of blowing it up. But luckily, there was another target pretty close at one of the orbital platforms. So, I took the thing over there. Might as well get some use out of it. Flew it close to the platform, and then, in a beautiful act of cosmic irony, hit the self-destruct, hoping that the massive explosion would distract the target on the platform. As I floated out and waited, a paladin came in and started attacking the already doomed ship. Why? I don't know. Maybe they felt like fighting scrap metal, but they certainly got a shock when the whole thing went up in smoke. Now, all that was left to do was finish the job. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up the video for this week. I was pretty pleased that I'd actually managed to take down a capital ship, despite the fact that there was not really anyone on it. But, you know, a win's a win, right? The last guy was just holed up in the locker room here at the OLP station, so took him down. He said in chat he was pretty surprised it was like a SWAT team raid. But yeah, more videos on the way as always. Got a really special one lined up for you next week when I can get it out, so look out for that. But yeah, that was my video on leading a double life as a bounty hunter on the right and the wrong side of the law. So yeah, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment about the Armistice zones, or are they just frustration zones? What do you think? Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one.